Hey, welcome everyone joining us via YouTube for our webinar, Business in the Trenches with COVID-19. This is the second of a series of webinars designed to assist and advise small to mid-sized business owners, wherever they may be located in the US, on issues and actions that they can take to manage and optimize their business during this worldwide crisis. Our first session, available on YouTube at B2B Solutions Group, focused on strategy and financial considerations. Today's session will shine the light on business operations and the steps that you can take to manage your workforce and productivity as we deal with work from home and the varying ways this virus has upended our business lives. As we are live at this moment, I also want to encourage you to share this link right now with other business owners that you believe may benefit from this discussion. My name is Randy Mitchell. I'm a business broker with VR Business Brokers of Charlotte, North Carolina. We help business owners who are ready to sell their businesses for the best possible terms. We also guide prospective business owners in discovering self-employment options that meet with their goals, their needs, their expectations. We have a number of topics related to operations that we will get into here, including many questions that some of you have submitted in advance. But you may have additional questions today as this unfolds, and you may type those in the chat area of your screen, and we are going to get to those this morning then as well. I want to offer this disclaimer as we get started. As it has become apparent to all of us in the last few weeks, change is happening rapidly in our world. Comments and opinions shared today are just that. You would be wise to seek professional counsel when it comes to solutions that are best for you and your business. Our panelists today all belong to a network called the B2B Solutions Group. That's the letter B, the number 2, the letter B Solutions Group. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina. Members of this organization bring unique and specialized perspectives and experiences to their clients and to this panel discussion today. You can learn more about the panelists and the network at b2bsolutionsgroup.net. So let's meet our panelists. Let's get into the meat of the subject at hand and managing the operations side of your business. Jason Basir is president of Basir & Associates, a national recruitment advertising agency and recruitment processing outsourcing firm. Jason, good to see you.
Be here, Randy.
Jerry Brucken is chief operating officer of Advanced Imaging Systems. They provide a wide range of document management services, including document relocation, storage, scanning, conversion, and data migration. Jerry, glad to have you here. Anthony Donino is founder of CORE, Creating Our Reality. He's a keynote motivational speaker, trainer, workshop facilitator, and an author. Anthony, good to have you on board.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here today.
John Griffith is the owner of Team Logic IT. They provide a full range of IT services to small and mid-sized businesses in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. John, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Randy.
Last but certainly not least, Tom Hamilton's the managing partner for Hamilton Edwards, a provider of payroll, HR, and benefit solutions for small to medium-sized businesses. Tom, welcome.
Good to be here, Randy.
Tom, I want to turn to you first here from an HR perspective. We are looking at the possibility very soon, we hope, of reopening, of getting back to some normalcy, whatever normal is going to look like in the new period that we're entering in. From your perspective and to look with your HR hat on, what will reopening our businesses look like?
Well, thanks, Randy. And I want to thank everybody for being here today and being on our call. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to go through this information with you all. It starts with a plan. It starts with a game plan. I know that a lot of us have probably been on video conference, been on other type of meetings that have heard about planning, but it's not just one option you have to think about. You have to be thinking all alternatives, 3 alternatives basically, and it needs to be based on timelines and scenarios that the government, the public, the vendors, and your employees will dictate. You must be thinking not just now, but 3 months, 1 year, three years out from looking at this. So while planning and thinking about how to bring the employees and clients back, Randy, the number one focus right now is determining what opportunities that your business has. And there's no saying out there. It's hard to remember that the main mission is to drain the swamp when you're up here biting alligators. And right now, business owners are dealing with those alligators, and they're biting right now. They're not focused on necessarily the opportunities that are out there. You may have to switch up your business model. It may be, but it does need to be focused around opportunity and not just fixing problems. How your employees fit in this is a critical piece of getting your business up and going again. In 2014, when healthcare reform was at its craziest, I had to rethink my business model because the current revenue stream dried up due to regulations. I had to quickly look at diversifying and change the way I was approaching the market to stay in business. I let employees go, and I kept those that were in alignment with my vision. I kept them on board and kept us going. I had to make some tough decisions, but they were the best decisions I could have ever made to grow a thriving business. As we said in the Marine Corps,
Go ahead. Finish that, please.
I was going to say, as we said in the Marine Corps, the best laid out plans we have to do is ready to improvise, adapt, and overcome. So you, the business owner, must also innovate. You must look for opportunity, adapt to the way things are going to be, whatever that is, and then overcome those obstacles may exist to bring your employees along the way.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome. And as you said, when we're wrestling with alligators up to our ear here, it's challenging to do that. More on the employees then, because it's one thing to be opening up your business, but we got employees who've been personally impacted in many ways. In some cases, many business owners had to make the difficult decision to let folks go and or furlough, but maybe looking at how we bring those back. So what are some of the things you think business owners need to be thinking about as they consider bringing the employees back?
Sure. Well, no matter what the status has been for the employees, where they've been at home or office or furloughed, they're going to have to feel safe. They're going to need to feel safe back at work, back in the work environment, coming back. And it isn't how you feel as a business owner or as a manager out there and making them, what you think makes them feel safe. It's going to be what they think. And that's also for your vendors as well as your clients. You're going to have to make them feel safe. If your clients are coming to your workplace, you're going to have to think about that as well and what makes them feel safe. There are three things you can do to get your employees to start feeling safe in that workplace again. One, be honest and transparent. Convey your game plan and understand the understanding of those employees' concerns. Number two, get feedback on the game plan and really listen. Make adjustments and accommodate where possible and within reason. Number three, then you've got to put processes in place and whatever's decided as the best options. If employees, for example, are to wear a mask, then make sure that there's a proper procedure on when, where, and how it is worn. One other thing we got to look at, Randy, is if employees who are furloughed, if you have employees who are furloughed, you need to be prepared on how to address someone who's making more money on unemployment claims than working for you. Again, communication and the three steps I just spoke of are important in this case.
Got it. So it's planning, it's being transparent, being open with folks then, creating the policies and procedures. And I want to come back to you on that here in a little bit. I want to move over to Anthony. And while I'm bringing you up here, I also just want to remind folks, if you have questions out there, please type them into the chat screen. We'd love to be able to get to them. And so Anthony, Tom brought up about employees. And you speak to organizations all the time about leadership, customer service, communication, and culture. And those first several make sense to me as priorities, but culture seems to me, if I was a business owner, that's the last thing I need to worry about at this time. As Tom said, I'm wrestling with the alligators out there right now then. Why do you believe culture is important, and how do we pay attention to managing the culture of our organization during this crisis?
Hey, great question, Randy. And before I get into that, I would like to thank everybody as well for tuning in today. There's a lot of demands on your time right now in different areas, and you have different options out there. So again, just thank you for tuning in. To your question, Randy, yeah, I really do feel like company culture now, more than ever, actually takes on even an elevated role. So the question becomes, though, well, there's no company setting, right? We're all working independently and individually. So how can culture play a role? It's interesting. And Tom actually touched on this. First and foremost, the answer to that question is communication. I'm going to dive into that in a second, but there's a recent Gallup poll, and it showed that employees strongly agree that their leaders do not, 13% of employees strongly agree that leaders communicate effectively. So that means that 87% of leaders right now don't have the best means of communicating with their employees. So for a lot of leaders, maybe that's something that's scary because, hey, maybe you're not the best writer out there, in terms of crafting an email. Maybe you're not the best speakers, right? But the bottom line is this: there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of doubts right now out from people who are working from home, and like us all, we haven't been through this before. So for that reason, it becomes even more important for leaders to communicate messages to their employees on a consistent basis. That's going to do a lot of great things for employees, both now and as you get back to what will be the new normal in the future.
I guess that makes sense, especially that employees are dealing with a lot of stress in their own lives in many cases. Maybe loss of job and or loss of a spouse's job, or the kids working from home. There's a lot of stress. So it's important that you're saying for those business owners to communicate well, show that you care, be honest with them and open with them, then and they will remember that, I suppose, then they'll remember that as that's part of the culture, the uniqueness about this organization.
Yeah. And take a personal interest. Look, you don't have to be all warm and fuzzy with everybody all the time, right? And I get that's not a lot of people's personalities. But when people know you care, right? When you ask them about how they're doing, how their family is, or even questions like how you can help, it goes a long way with people. Creating the message that, hey, you know what, this is tough, right? But we're going to get through this, and we're going to get through this together. All very, very important. You have to create that hope that keeps people going on a daily basis. And bottom line, keep your employees active, right? Not so much with the day-to-day operations, but challenge them, right? And challenge them to come up with different thoughts and ideas for how not only you get through this time, but how you excel through this time.
Got it. Because I was going to go into that, and maybe there's more we can add to that about keeping those employees while we continue to have, and probably will have for a while, a large percentage of our employees working from home or remotely. How do we keep them engaged? How do we keep them excited when they're not there present in the workforce? Their job requirements have changed. Anything else you'd add to that about keeping them engaged and excited?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think, as that last point kind of led to, empower your employees, right, to make a difference. And with regard to like employees' role and how you can maintain that excitement, I have a favorite saying that I use at different talks I give and workshops I conduct, and it's specifically for the employees. And it's simply this: you don't have to be in charge to be a leader. Right? So you have leadership taking that active role and being involved. But hey, the buck doesn't stop there. It's also up to the employees really to show up, for example, every day with a positive attitude, to keep their fellow employees engaged, right? Take those opportunities and those challenges and this time to go above and beyond. So for example, you have your day-to-day job, but there's always maybe something you've been wanting to work on, something that you think can be a benefit to your company. Take it upon yourself and be a leader to go on ahead and work on that plan and work on all the details, get it out to present, and really, like a leader, like somebody who is the boss and who's the leader right now. Let your employees, let your friends, right? Let people know that you care about what's going on. I think as employees and as leaders, if we collectively take these steps, you're going to do wonders. You're going to come out of this just in fantastic shape.
Good advice, Anthony. Appreciate it. I got some things I'll come back to you on later. Then we're talking about employees here on that side. The whole subject we're talking about is operations, managing our operations. But a large part of operations is the employee aspect and the human resource side. Jason Basir, I want to bring you in here because you bring a different perspective here, reinforcing, I think, probably what we've talked about. But sadly, many businesses have had to let go a good portion of their staff. Jason, you had told me recently that in all of this doom and gloom, there's an opportunity in there for some employers. Tell me more what you mean by that.
Randy, thanks so much. The situation is dire for many companies, and it goes without saying, some companies are not going to survive this epidemic. And some companies are actually going to close the door. Sadly, we've seen that happen, and that's tragic. But conversely, there's opportunity. There's actually windows of opportunity. We just came off of, remember, it just wasn't long ago, a quarter ago, that we were at an all-time low in unemployment. Think about that. Now, just last week, we've got over 4 million people that have applied for unemployment benefits. So we went from this all-time low unemployment to now a lot of people have hit the marketplace. So I think about where those traditionally hard to fill roles are across the board. Now you've got an influx of new talent. Literally on job boards now, there has been an increase of over 242% in traffic on these job boards, large parcel because of what we're experiencing. But if there's positions maybe that have historically been difficult to find, now people can, companies can gain access to talent that they didn't have access to before. So for example, delivery drivers, historically very hard. Searches for those roles are up 54%. Medical roles, traditionally hard, up 20%. It's a great time to recruit for nurses. I think about the role of warehouse workers. Those roles are up for searches by 20%. If you've got a need as a company, accounting, finance, IT, to the demise of some companies that have had to go bye-bye or had to lay off people, you as an employer now can have access to that talent. So if you need to hire, do it, specifically in the trade, skilled labor, nurses. Again, I mentioned accounting and finance, and I wanted to fit this in as a sidebar for the person who's listening on this current live broadcast. Whether you are available immediately or somebody who really is looking for that job, I want to encourage them to add the word #ready-to-work. This hashtag can actually increase their visibility on their resume by up to 30% by doing something as simple as this. So there's opportunity for employers to get access to talent they wouldn't ordinarily have access to.
Good. So opportunity to seize the advantage here. Get the talent that you need to fill positions where you couldn't find that good talent before then. What are some operational steps that employers can take when it comes to recruiting good talent? You mentioned a little bit from someone who's seeking a job, use the hashtag there. But what about from an employer perspective?
As a company, we specialize in recruitment advertising and recruitment branding, and 4 things I'd mention to help companies operationally around their hiring strategy are: number 1, they need to continue a strong brand and pipeline in terms of promoting their brand to active job seekers, maintaining a healthy pipeline. Number 2, they need to promote their benefits and their offerings as a company. Few companies do this. 80 to 90% of companies are just cutting and pasting their job description and throwing that out as a recruiting message, and it's failing. There is so much you have to offer as a company. So you need to think about what's in it for me, and put your mind in the mind of a job seeker. So add benefits. A new benefit that you might have is a work from home benefit. A lot of my clients are telling me that now. Thirdly, they need to expand their reach into new locations and maybe even categories of traditional roles where people have done this kind of a job, but they can pivot and maybe come and do your role. They have competencies and skill sets, or even location. Now that candidates can work from home, maybe they traditionally would recruit in a 30-mile radius. Maybe you should expand that to 100 to 200-mile radius. And last, consider innovation. There might be current jobs that are within your organization that now, enabling a virtual work environment, you can continue to reach this new pool of candidates. I'll just surmise to say, Randy, I am persuaded that there are companies and people listening on this call today that have got into a rut in their business, but they have a potentially to add even a new division to their company, thinking about things differently, and things will be different for the positive.
God, appreciate Jason. Good insight there. I want to come back to you on some things in a little bit. So we've been talking a lot about the employee side, and we've got a little more on that here. I wanted to move over to Jerry, because Jerry, you're in the document management business. You have a large workforce then, and you had told me that you got some folks who are working from home. You got some who are in the office then. About how many do you have of each then? Tell me a little bit about that and how you guys have set that up.
Yeah, thanks. We have about 120 folks total. About 40 of them are working remote right now, and that's up from, we probably increased that by about 30 people are working remote that weren't before. And then we have 80 people that are actually going to a brick and mortar facility. And so both of those have some interesting dynamics around them. And you would think that the work from home would be the easy one, but the reality is most of those folks have never worked from home before. So there's challenges. And as Anthony said, communication is the critical thing. Do not assume because they're working from home that they're okay, that they're not worried, because you can't see their face. You can't see that they're worried about something. And also keep in mind that the whole stress of working from home. I talk to my folks every day. We do a stand-up sync-up call with all the remote workers, and they're expressing cabin fever kinds of things right now. They love the human interaction, so they're like everybody else. So you'd think that would be easy. The brick and mortar side is a completely different set of challenges, and as Tom mentioned, the safety concerns are critical. Morale, as I think Anthony mentioned, is critical, and you have to stay in alignment with your values. So the key thing is to make sure that if you've got people working at a brick and mortar facility, that you are addressing anything that makes them nervous about being there, and dealing with how to communicate with them, how to make sure that they're comfortable, that that they're safe, that they are that the business is safe, their job is safe. And so what we've done is split them into some small work groups. We spread them into very distinct geographic spaces and split up the shifts, added deep cleaning, added face mask requirements, all sorts of things. But we did that in conjunction with the team, asking what is going to make you feel comfortable being here. So they thought of things like we didn't think of. We were sending all of them still to the time clock. And they said, that's the worst thing to do. And we said, you're right. So we came up with an alternative to that. So the key is involve them. And in the end, we're in this together. It's their plan as well.
All right, so you've given a lot of thought to that. You said about 80 people who are in the building and about 30 or some working remotely. And by the way, I want to dive into this a little more, but just want to remind folks, if you have questions, type them into the chat area, and we're going to get to those. And I've seen some that have come in, and we're going to follow up on those shortly. Jerry, a little more on that. So those who are coming in to the building, I mean, some of them, you mentioned you're doing some things at spacing and so on, but how do you manage morale for those? Because this is a challenging environment. Many of them have their kids are still at home or spouses at home with the kids, or they're just, they're concerned about health, safety. You told me about some steps, but let's talk a little bit about how do we boost morale and manage that?
Yeah, the answers are complex yet also simple. And as again, Anthony hit it pretty well. Communication is even more critical now, and company culture is even more critical now. If you're a company culture like ours that speaks to being caring about people, being family oriented, that kind of thing, this is not the time to do things that are counter to that. It's the time to reinforce that. When you come out the other side, they'll remember all of that. So morale, what we do is we're over communicating. We are making sure they know what we're doing, they're involved in why we're doing and what we're doing in terms of the safety precautions. We're in many cases asking for help to find masks, and people are coming up with great ideas, friends of friends that are making masks. So we're over communicating. We're also doing if you can afford to do this, I strongly recommend, we're doing a thank you bonus for everybody that's going into the brick and mortar facility. We're offering a weekly bonus for them, and it's just to thank them for all the disruption we've caused. We are making it so they can't see their workmates until the end of this, because we've made it so they come in different doors and they can't cross shifts and they can't work overtime and see each other. So it's quite disruptive if you think about the normal work life that we've done. So there's that, as well as we're just doing, anytime we have a chance to do something like pizza. We did pizza day before yesterday, just anything like that that makes them realize, to the point where I've had employees say, hey, it's just through all this, it's just really good to know that you guys as leaders really care about us, and just reinforce that every step of the way. They're not looking for a free lunch. They're happy they're not part of the 20 million unemployed, but they also want to know that they're safe and they're not taking something home to their family that's not good for their family. And so it's all about making them comfortable and safe.
Impressive. You guys put a lot of thought into it. You used a term that I hadn't been familiar with a while ago. For those folks who are working remote, you said every day you have a stand-up sync-up meeting. Is that what you called it?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And about for how long? How long is the call?
It's today it was a little less than 15 minutes. It's just a quick touch point roundtable. We require that everybody use their camera. It is not okay to work remote and be invisible. That's all critically important. So if you have remote workers, make sure they're set up for all of the important tools that allow them to be successful. but also if you're going to do a daily sync up, make sure they're on camera. There is so much to be said for being able to visually see people and keep that interaction going.
Fascinating and an outstanding segue, because I want to move over to John on that, because you brought up cameras then. John, we've been talking a little bit about work from home and managing employees. And while it seems like many of us have essentially earned the equivalent of a master's degree in Zoom these last few weeks, but you have some concerns about the distribution of technology in this work from home world that we're in. Tell me more what your concerns are.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. You know, we've been in this shutdown, depending on where you're located, but in the Charlotte or North Carolina area, it's been almost a full month, maybe a little over a full month. And I think in the early days, there was a mad rush just to get employees connected. And there wasn't much concern, and really not much time for concern for getting people set up properly. And by properly, I really mean securely. For example, connecting an employee's computer across the normal secure VPN to a secure network, if it's the employee's home computer that's being connected, and that computer hasn't been maintained by the company or its IT firm, hasn't been checked for viruses, malware, all that basically could provide access to malware to what would otherwise be a secure network. And a lot of otherwise secure data. I think also, aside from the early rush, a lot of the employees who now have to work from home have not worked remotely before, at least not for any length of time. And we're not talking about the road warriors, the people who were initially set up, maybe they were hired to be on the road most of the time. So they're generally properly set up. They're trained to use their laptops or whatever they were issued to keep them secure. The laptops themselves are probably secure, so that if they're stolen, the data is encrypted and they won't lose any data that way. Well, now you've got people working from home who are back office people. They're finance, HR, admin staff. They normally work in a secure office environment. And now they may be working from their kitchen table or some other somewhat unfamiliar work environment anyway. They may be sitting next to their spouses, maybe next to their kids, if they have school-age kids they're basically homeschooling now. The network, their home network may or may not be secure. And a lot of them are going to be in an environment where otherwise proprietary data can be viewed by people who shouldn't view it. And look, the compliance rules don't care if it's your family that's seeing data that they shouldn't see. All the compliance rules care about is possibilities. So there's probably some things that, depending on the length of the work from home movement and how extensive it remains, are going to have to be addressed.
John, business owners had to put this together in a hurry. Some of the speakers already here said that within a couple of weeks, they had to get people out there in the workforce, people working from home who may have not been used to it. So business owners did the best they could. Is there anything at this stage that they could do better or different to try and address those concerns about safety and security?
Yeah, look, this is a real good time just to return in some manner to just very basic computer security training, especially if you handle or the employee handles sensitive information, especially if it's medical information. Look, we know of clients who have admin workers dealing with medical claims from home, insurance submissions, things like that. Well, that's all extremely sensitive information. You have to get with them and make sure they understand or they remember that the physical security of the information is just as important as how they're connected. Information overheard during phone calls, it can be sensitive. Video conferences. Are people logging out when they walk away from their PCs? Just very basic things, not hard to do, but the reminder is good to have. And now would be a very good time to do that.
So you're saying it's not just getting the hardware out there into their homes, it's training the employees on the proper uses of that to be able to be sensitive to hackers and scammers and other threats to cybersecurity.
Yeah, I mean, the type of stand-up meetings that Jerry was referring to a few minutes ago be a great time to spend 2 or 3 minutes on not just, hey, we sent an email, make sure you read it. You're responsible for data security, but to walk people through and actually remind them and make that connection, even if it's by video.
Good point. Good point. We had a question for you, John, that came from the chat room here, asking, and you've touched on it a little bit, but maybe you can expand this a little bit. How can technology enable the remote workforce? And maybe tied to that is, this is not a short-term thing. We're talking about we may have a good portion remote workforce for months to come, if not longer then. So given what we've done so far, what do you think that business owners should do to plan for this more of long-term of managing technology in a remote workforce?
Well, look, for businesses that are fortunate enough to be for a remote workforce to actually be practical, they're actually pretty fortunate, because there are a lot of businesses where people actually have to be on site to do their jobs. One of the things I didn't mention earlier, but which I'm sure everyone who's tried to outfit a home office in the last month realized, was you couldn't find any webcams online. They just weren't available. Things like that need to be made available to the employees, so they're not having to be on web conferences with a 5 or 10-year-old laptop camera that probably doesn't work very well. There's so many things that employers can provide now for their employees to be productive, and almost as important, feel like they're searching for the word here. People don't like to be put in awkward positions when they're trying to do their jobs. And
right.
if people aren't comfortable on a web conference, especially if they're working from home, probably putting them in a very uncomfortable situation, and that's not tenable in the long run. So think about, like we said earlier, a good webcam with a good sound pickup on it. There are a lot of models that provide that. If people are having to take phone calls on their cell phones, from the point of view of the business, does your phone provider, your voice over IP service, if you have voice over IP, have you installed, or have you allowed the employees to install the soft phone app either on their cell phone or on their personal computer, either the one they took home or the one they have at home, so that they can make phone calls and receive phone calls in the most professional way possible. There are a lot of things that can be done, especially as I think employers have been afraid to simply open the floodgates on technology purchases, because they don't really know who's going to be working from home going forward and who isn't. I think in terms of planning, you have to expect there's going to be a long tail on the working from home phenomenon. This is not going away on May 8th or whenever the shutdown goes away in your particular locale. There are going to be people for months to come who are going to strongly prefer to work from home. And I don't know what the trigger is going to be to end that phenomenon or make people feel better about leaving their homes and coming back to a full workplace. But employers need to recognize that different people are going to have very different perceptions of what's safe and what isn't.
Got it. Yep. Good. So business owners are going to give a lot more thought. This isn't a short-term thing. We need to plan for the long term. It may be better technology. It's definitely going to be better training for our employees along the way to prepare them. Back to that employee issue, then I want to go to Tom, the question that we had that came in. So Tom, someone asked us here, tell us more, and this is great here because someone else mentioned this a while ago, and I've seen this with business owners I've chatted with. Tell me how we attract our furloughed employees back when they're making more money right now on unemployment.
Yeah, good question. Hopefully the employer, whoever that is, maybe is talking to and communicating with those furloughed employees. That's the number one thing right now. If you're planning on bringing these employees back, these individuals back, they need to be hopefully in touch. You need to be staying in touch with them, talking about what you're doing. As I was mentioning earlier about being upfront with them about what's going on with your business, that type of thing, and then start talking to them about when you're planning on through the planning, you're going to bring them on back here, and hopefully they're on board with that. This money, as far as the unemployment claims, is going to run out. It's a 4-month deal. We're already 1 month, I think about 1 month or so into it. So that unemployment money is going to stop. And then also right now, you are getting some leeway on the employee benefits, on the health benefit right now, as far as that coverage, but that's going to run out as well. So if they're going to stay, in place, then they're going to lose some of these things there. The other thing to think about is, again, sort of put that reward out there. I think there was, some discussion there from Jerry about, some type of incentive saying, hey, if we get through this, create a, maybe a profit share type situation that, hey, once we get through this, you help us out, we'll work out something that maybe we get a bonus or some type of something for helping us get through this program. So anyway, that's some things I think you can do from that standpoint.
I want to tie that back to Jerry. Well, you brought up Jerry on that. So Jerry, this is a question that came out there from the field also. Do you recommend, based on your experiences, offering salary increases as an incentive? And I presume that's for those who are still on board, the salary increases to them. You mentioned you're doing a one-time bonus, it sounded like. What do you think about salary increases?
Yeah, so I'd say no and yes. So I'm always concerned about changing salary, which is a long-term thing, versus a short-term benefit such as a temporary bonus. And so what we've chosen to do is increase the compensation, but doing it by adding something on top of the salary. And that's what I mentioned earlier. That allows you to have a sunset on it. It allows you to tie it specific to events, and it's not something that you have to then go back and potentially take away later, because the increase is, as Tom was just mentioning, if you're doing something like that to also preclude people from finding a way to get onto EFMLA or unemployment, you want to have that number be significant enough to retain them and to potentially attract them back, but you don't want it to be something that runs forever past the period of time when the high unemployment compensation is available. So long answer to the question, but no, I think compensation is definitely important. Tie it to disruption. Don't make it sound like a bribe, and then make it have a sunset that's tied to specific events. Once the stay-at-home order is dropped, we'll drop back 2 weeks later, whatever it is, something like that.
Good point. While we're talking about the topic of unemployment versus employment, then Jason, I want to pivot back to you then on this. A question that came out from the field: with unemployment increasing, how exactly are folks supposed to get through the noise that's out there? We have this sudden imbalance of all these people who are unemployed, and many of them maybe for a short time. Aren't recruiters getting slammed with resumes now? How are recruiters going to manage this?
Yeah, you'd like to think that recruiters are getting slammed, but the recommendation I gave earlier in the conversation around hashtag ready to work was just it's got a window, a lifespan. It's not going to be forever. So some employers who have a real immediacy in their specific space are utilizing this hashtag ready to work. So I think this is a systemic piece or a conversation. And that the question is how do you wade through? No, recruiters are not just getting slammed. The reality of the matter is Too many job seekers today are just focusing on a post and pray mentality, and they sit idly at home wondering, well, I haven't gotten any phone calls. I just haven't reheard back. And too many people, even on this call today, are going to hear me say this, they will not take action. So the reality is if you really want to be heard, you want to break through the noise, you're going to have to do the work. Treat the job like a job of finding a job, 8 to 5. Instead of posting and praying, you're literally picking up the phone and you're making phone calls. You're actually burning the candle on both ends. If you find a sales role, you might reach out to the HR person, and you might reach out to the sales manager, and you might make actually a phone call in addition to posting through the applicant tracking system. And then what are you doing to set yourself apart with your resume, not making it just focused on your job skill sets, but what are your accomplishments? People want to know that your past behavior will predicate future performance. So list your successes. Headhunters are not getting slammed. The truth is candidates just aren't doing the work to set themselves apart, Randy.
And I would presume that building on that, what you just said, in addition, make the phone calls. Another good reason is that those people who were almost impossible to reach before in many businesses might be easier to reach now. That is, those hiring managers, those sales managers that you've been trying to contact because I want a job there.
They may or may not be more accessible, but to you, the job seeker, they're going to have to get through the gatekeeper. You're going to have to get through the email system. You're going to have to get through the noise that way. And the answer is just candidates, frankly, are not doing the heavy lifting and doing the work that's required to get the job. That's why it's called work. And it might take a little work to find your next opportunity, but it's out there to be had. Folks just need to treat it like a job and get to work.
Appreciate that, Jason. There's the motivational talk for the day. Hey, I want to get to a question that was submitted earlier when the registrations for this. And Tom, I think that I want to take this back to you because we're talking about operations. That's the key focus here on today's panel discussion. And I understand that OSHA is developing some new COVID-19 rules. Any update on the OSHA rules that you can provide help on?
Well, first of all, this is the wild, wild west right now. There's no company rule book for a pandemic. Just letting you know on that. It's coming together, people trying to figure it out. But yeah, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, has put out guidelines or several sets of recommendations. You can go to OSHA.gov/publications/OSHA 3990. Again, that's OSHA.gov/publications/OSHA, OSHA 3990 for the publication to get help and give you ideas on how to make your business safe and the procedural aspect of your business. Now, again, there's some other things you need to think about too. I mean, there's some great stuff in that publication, but also look at, getting with other peers in the industry to help you look at that and put this together. So look at different things here. There's also risk management organizations like Praxium out there that can help you put stuff together if you're depending on what you want to do in that regard. But those are some things you can do there to help get going.
Good. So OSHA's going to give us some guidance then and keep it a safe workforce going forward then. And while some owners may normally chafe at the rules and regulations, they may welcome some guidance there so that they can do the right thing for their employees, I suspect. Right. Anthony, I want to move over to you on something I wanted to ask. So we're talking about this new normal and businesses are adapting to it then. What are some things that you think of that they can be doing now to enhance their abilities to be stronger later?
Yeah, great thought. As we're starting to settle in now, I kind of feel, I kind of sense, and in collaborating with different people, kind of have the understanding that we're starting to get our footing now in terms of what's going on, potentially what we can expect, and we're a lot more ready to adapt as time goes on. That said, what I propose right now is taking the time also to reevaluate some things within your company. For example, your sales process, right? Are you looking to get a customer, or do you want return customers? Do you want to make them clients and long-term, right? What is the message that you're sending? What is the message that your salespeople are sending? customer service, maybe it's very, very good, but are there some areas that you could tweak to make it even better? Marketing efforts, I think, are very important in an area you can reevaluate as well. Does your website and your printed materials and your social media, are all those messages saying the same things, or are they all scattered in different direction? Because I really feel that they have to be consistent in terms of your messaging. Let the customer know who you are, what you represent, why they want to come to you. And again, to do it consistently. Those 3 steps that go along with, enhancing your company culture, increasing communication. I think those are all great things, 5 great things there you could reevaluate and come out of this not only in good shape, but in better shape maybe than you were before we entered this pandemic.
Good insight. And that links to a question I want to turn over to Jerry. Also, Jerry, you had shared with me the other day that you believe there's some silver linings to all of this that we're dealing with from an operations perspective. What do you believe is the silver lining that you've been seeing?
Yeah, we're hearing this from clients as well, that in many cases, the things that we should have done before, but we just didn't have time for it, or we didn't really have a kick in the you-know-what to move us along, implementing that new productivity tool. In many cases, the statistics say that many companies are not going to snap all the way back to a full go-to-work strategy, go to a brick and mortar facility. So implementing the tools that enable that, the things that John was mentioning, we can't get right now, such as cameras and software tools, we need to implement those things. So the new normal is that suddenly people are planning for the future and for a new future that's probably far more productive for them than the one that they previously operated within, and probably better for their employees as well. And to what Jason mentioned, it opens up all sorts of recruiting opportunities once you do more work from home or enable some of these strategic positions to be a work from home strategy. Now you don't mind if they're in Anchorage, Alaska. You can recruit them anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world.
That's an interesting idea, being able to bring on staff from anywhere as we get more and more comfortable with remote work. Jason, I want to tie back to you on that because you work in recruiting. Any other insights you'd add to that idea of being open to bringing on people from other cities, other states, gosh, even other countries onto your team? Is that right?
It's totally true. I mean, we have seen it recently that clients now are very, very open in recent days to the work from home environment. And that's caused a whole window of opportunity and new dialogue of how to recruit. And so when job seekers find job opportunities, they need to be keenly aware of maybe where those job opportunities are. It may be that the company's located in Charlotte, North Carolina, but the applicant may be searching from as far away as New Jersey or Florida and applying for roles. So it's really revolutionized the way people think about jobs, and companies and employers think about the footprint by which they can recruit from. And it's going to be opportunities on both ends. It's going to bless job seekers. It's going to bless employers. And as Jerry already said, I don't think things are going to go back. I think we're going to be progressively moving forward. These are exciting times, and conversations we're having with clients is radically different than it was just 3 to 6 months ago. We're excited.
Good point.
If I could add on to that real quick.
Please,
yeah. In addition, just from us as business leaders, not just where we can recruit from, but also the geographic space we may have mentally, and this is the other silver lining we're seeing, what we saw as our sort of space that we operate in, suddenly that's broader. So for example, one thing that we offer is mailroom operations, where critical mail that comes in, we can pick it up and process it. It used to be challenging to get somebody in Arkansas to put a PO box in, send it to us. And now and there was all kinds of politics and red tape, and suddenly that's not a problem. So the things that you used to, I guess, rethink all the things that kept you from expanding where you are, what you're focusing on, and also your geographic space. And all those things that were no's before, suddenly we're finding are immediate yeses now that enables them to go to the same kind of model we're talking about.
Great, good summary there. For any of you, this is a question I'm going to throw out to any of you. Anything that is particularly that you've been seeing in some of your clients that you serve that they are doing through all of this that you thought was unique, beneficial, adding value, a sign of adapting that was novel and new and could have some sustaining benefit going forward? Any of you? Jason, see the hand?
I'll just say that riding on the coattails of what Tony's already said is the idea that we should just pick up the phone call and call our customers and ask them how they're doing. You don't necessarily have to call and sell them anything. Just inquiring of how's your business. I've got some clients in Tennessee that when the tornadoes hit, I didn't want them to buy anything from me. I just wanted to find, is your house still standing? This tornado hit in your county, or the floods. And while you feel like you have a little time on your hand, doing business a little bit differently rather than calling them, asking them for their business, thanking them for the work that they let you do for them, and then checking on how well they're doing in light of the times and just being concerned about them. This margin that we have can be really leveraged from a branding standpoint, that you care about your clients, you care about people. And I think that translates well.
I think so too, and that seems to be a good point to kind of look towards a wrap up here, because in times of stress, in times of turmoil, in times of chaos, people will turn to leaders for inspiration, direction, for calmness and clarity. And the counsel I've heard all of you say today is that communication is going to be very important today for business owners to be able to give to their employees, to be able to communicate to their customers, to their vendors as well. And people will remember that, back to what Anthony had said early on, that helps form your culture through all of this. So you can impact all those things as you're managing operations. Looking at the time, we're wrapping up. Looks like we've run out of questions from out there in the field. Then I want to thank our panelists, Jason, Jerry, Anthony, John, and Tom. If you have any further questions for any of them, you can find their contact information at the website b2bsolutionsgroup.net. For those who registered to attend this event, we're going to be sending you a brief survey to seek your feedback. We'd appreciate your comments as we strive to provide meaningful content to our small to mid-sized business community. And our next event will be on May 13th, 11:30 a.m. live on YouTube. We're going to continue our series on business in the trenches with COVID-19. We're going to turn our focus then towards sales and marketing strategies for your business. Until then, we wish you, your family, your business, good health and success as we all adapt to a new reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you.